What is up? What is going on, everybody? It has been, I think, about a month now since a video has come out, but myself and MarinersSUR are back. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the rumors as the hot stove is starting to, I wouldn't say heat up, but it's the temperature's up. It's on. The stove is on. We actually do have a move. Mariners grabbed a reliever, but we'll talk about some of the rumors that have been out there for the Seattle Mariners. Some potential players have been brought up. We'll give our thoughts on it and talk about what it could mean for the 2025 Seattle Mariners. As always, before I go any further, make sure to hit that like button, hit subscribe if you're new or lurking. I do apologize if my video is a little off today. Hopefully the sound is good for all of you. New setup here, so I'll make sure I get that all under control for you as we dive into the off season. More for the Mariners, it's the off season for me too, so I continue to make adjustments as well. But I've got MarinersSUR here. How you doing? It's been about 3-4 weeks since we've done a video. You're ready for the 2025 season already, I can tell.
I am. Yep, I'm ready for it. But excited that we still have the off season to make some improvements to the team, hopefully. And but yeah, I'm definitely ready to get some more baseball to watch on a nightly basis. It definitely feels a little bit empty and boring at times without that kind of nightly game to count on. So definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, same for me. I love football, but it's great to come home on a Tuesday night and be able to go, hey, got a baseball game I get to watch tonight, even if it's not the Mariners. I miss just turning on a random Pirates versus, Cardinals game or something like that. So I'm the same way. I've taken a little break from baseball, but I'm ready for it to come back. And I hope all of you are as well. I'm sure sometimes we dread the Mariners, but we all love baseball here. So there's been some names that have been mentioned. I guess we'll start with the one signing the Mariners have made. Adonis Medina. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that first name correctly. He's pitched a little bit in the big leagues with the Mets and the Phillies. I believe was pitching in the Dominican Republic. Kind of thrown into the pile there, but sounds like someone that may have a chance to make the major league roster. Do you have any thoughts on Medina?
Not a ton. Obviously, I think it's interesting that the Mariners kind of identified him so early in the offseason. So I think there's something they like there, or maybe it's a case of a player and an agent kind of recognize that the Mariners have had some success with relievers. Obviously, like last year, I wouldn't say was a banner year for them bringing in relievers, but I think they have that kind of cash in the across MLB now in terms of like bringing in relievers and doing well. So I think that's interesting. In terms of kind of, what he's done in his MLB career, not really anything to write home about, but I mean, relievers are so fickle. You don't really know where the next breakout reliever is coming from. I'm not saying I think he's going to be that, but I think from what I read, good command, best pitch is a changeup, maybe 93 to 95 kind of sinker. So, I think a reliever that can throw strikes has a plus pitch in the changeup. And I'll be curious if the Mariners can maybe get more fastball value out of him, or perhaps, rework a slider or whatever it may be. But yeah, that's another pitcher they've kind of added to the pile. And looks like he's out. I'm just looking now. He's out of minor league options, which is interesting. So I think it was a minor league deal. So odds are they'll probably start him in Tacoma unless he really, really looks good in the spring. That way they can kind of call him up when needed. Otherwise, you start him in the MLB. If he struggles, you lose him. So I don't know if we'll see him right away, but if he kind of forces a hand and makes it out of spring, I think that's a really good sign for things to come. But yeah, just another pitcher to add to the pile. And I'm sure we'll see a few more that nobody really knows about. And hopefully there's, maybe it's the next Colin Snyder that comes out of nowhere.
Yep. Yeah, and listen, I know these signings don't mean much to people, and they shouldn't necessarily mean a ton, but every year the Mariners have had some reliever that's kind of stepped up. You mentioned Colin Snyder last year, Justin Topa, Paul Sewald, guys that probably nobody spent any time talking about in off-season videos that end up playing very key roles for the Mariners and helping them to win some baseball games. So I'm certainly, like with you, I'm not saying Medina's going to be that guy. He could just be another guy that sticks in Tacoma and doesn't do a whole lot, but you never know. And the Mariners do have a pretty good track record with guys like this and getting some value out of them. So, and like you said too, kind of interesting that was their first kind of move, for a guy like that. That's normally a move maybe you see more in January, that would just kind of goes under the radar, like the Kirby Sneeds, the Jonathan Diaz's of the world. So maybe something they see there that they could develop. And I do definitely trust this team with bullpen arms. So I'm not predicting he's going to be your 7th inning guy game 1, probably not, but you never know. I think it's always interesting to keep an eye on those guys, and they could make an impact for the Mariners in the season. So that's the only signing we have so far. The rumor mill has heated up, though, a little bit. I know the Angels have been very active already, surprisingly, but a few names have been linked to the Mariners. We'll go through them a little bit. We'll start with the Japanese pitcher. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Roki Sasaki from Japan. Outstanding numbers. But I think the question would be, and I'll let you talk about him a little bit, but what it would mean for the rotation, because this is a pretty solid rotation, 1 through 5. Obviously, Brian Woo's battled some injuries, but it sounds like the Mariners are in on him. The Dodgers, the number 1 team. What's your thoughts on Sasaki?
Yeah, I mean, very interesting. Just from the standpoint of, I mean, it would be a complete fortune for the organization to fall upon, just because I don't know the exact kind of rules behind it, but I know like with his situation for sure, he comes in and he's the same setup as a guy that's a rookie that gets called up. So basically the first 3 years they play for the league minimum and then they go to arbitration. And so, I mean, the potential to add an arm like that at essentially no cost would be, I mean, huge for the team. I know like Jeff Passan, I think mentioned on some radio show or podcast that he thinks he's maybe a top 5 arm in the world. And I mean, as soon as this year. And so, I mean, you would get a guy that's a likely top of the rotation arm to add to this rotation, which would be significant. I think a lot of times over in Japan, they do run with 6-man rotations. And so it doesn't mean they would have to trade one of their starters, but if they were to sign him and kind of win those sweepstakes, I think it would be very smart to do so. Just because now you could add a guy that's just as good as probably anybody that's in the rotation. And now you could turn one of your pitchers into, likely 2 impact bats, if not more. And so it'd be a pretty insane fortune to find a new starter that's top of the rotation, but also add 2 impact bats for really no cost. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Like they said, it doesn't seem like it's money driven. If it was, he would have stayed in Japan for 2 more years. So then he could have came over and got a Yamamoto $300 million contract in 2 years. So it sounds like, pitching development's very important. Mariners are very, very good at that. Because maybe 710 kind of mentioned, they also can tout like how healthy they've kept pitchers. The Dodgers have not done that at all. I mean, it seems like year after year, their rotation is ravaged with injuries. So it's hard to know exactly what he's prioritizing or what he wants. I mean, if I had to guess, he'll end up with the Dodgers or Padres. I know Yu Darvish is kind of a mentor. But yeah, it sounds like the Mariners are planning to make a pitch. I'm sure all 30 teams are. But yeah, there's really nothing that could happen in this offseason that would be more impactful than adding him. Like I said, your rotation wouldn't drop off, and next thing you know, you could add 2 to 3 impact bats into the lineup. So it could completely kind of transform the outlook for the organization for the next 6 years. So yeah, fingers crossed we could add him. An electric arm. I think he's up to 103 miles an hour. Nasty splitter. A premium arm. So yeah, that'd be great. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, and I know some people probably like, well, this team doesn't need starting pitching, it needs offense. Listen, I'm a firm believer in get better. It doesn't really matter where. That if you can prevent 0 runs, you know what I mean? You don't need the best offense to win. So I'm just for the team getting better. And I'm pretty much against the team trading a starting pitcher. But if you can add a pitcher of that caliber, like you said, it opens it up for you to be able to do that. So you could look at it like, hey, we don't trust Brian Woo stay healthy a whole season. So you could work in a 6-man rotation, or you now are more open to trading someone. And now it's not a matter of like, hey, we trade Luis Castillo, but now our rotation's worse. Offense is a little bit better. Now your rotation is still fine with Sasaki in there, and you're making your offense better. So I'm all for it. Listen, I'm for the team getting better and making impact moves. And I think that would be one. So I'd 100% be all for it. I'm with you. I think my gut would tell me he goes to the Dodgers, San Diego, someone like that. Makes a little bit more sense, but it does sound like the Mariners are definitely, we're seeing their name in there. We went through everything with Soto, Ohtani. Yeah. The Mariners aren't mentioned anywhere. So the fact that they're even in that sweepstakes potentially is a positive. So yeah, I'm all for it for every reason you laid out. And especially if they can do that, then I am kind of on board with trading another starter. And then there's another Korean shortstop. So we've got Ha-Seong Kim, who is the Padres' second baseman. Then Hee-Seong Kim, I think, is the Korean shortstop. Again, I apologize to anybody listening this if I'm butchering the names. But I believe both Ha-Seong Kim from the Padres is a free agent as well, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yep.
And that's been a name that I think the Mariners have been linked to. It's not a bat that you got and right away go, oh my gosh, incredible 101 WRC plus last year, but an above average defender, was worth 2.5 wins above replacement level last season. What's your thoughts on Ha-Seong Kim from the Padres as a potential second base fit?
Yeah, I think he'd be interesting. I think last year he was a little bit better hitter, but with him there's a pretty good floor. Really good base runner, elite glove. So right there, that's a guy that's going to come in and likely improve beyond where we were last year. And then if his bat can be, that 110, 115 WRC plus, I don't have it up what he was last year, but I think he was right around there. I think he'd be an interesting fit. I do know that he had, I think, labrum surgery, and so he may not even be ready for a month or two into the season. But if that's a case, it also means that he's probably a little bit more for cover it with Ryan Bliss or Dylan Moore and Josh Rojas for the time being. But yeah, I think he'd be a good fit, can play second or third. As mentioned, he does add value. So not like an impact bat by any means, but I think you put him in the lineup and he's not going to be a black hole either. So yeah, be one that if they were to get him, I think it'd be a wise move.
Yeah, and I do too. And it's not necessarily a bat that, like I said, makes you go, wow, right off, just from looking at it. But again, there's just not, you can't add Hall of Famers at every position. And the Mariners are certainly a team that we know, isn't going to be in on everything. So it's a free agent bat that may make some sense for them. One thing we haven't talked about since we last talked is the Mariners declined, Jorge Polanco's option. Not surprising, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, not surprising. I think too with his, knee surgery, who knows if he'll be ready for the year. I think too with the season he had, you'd like him to have a healthy offseason to kind of work on some things that potentially hindered him. So I think it was smart with kind of where we know what their budget is they have in the offseason. I think it would have been really hard to spend $12 million on him, kind of not knowing what you're going to get. It's unfortunate we're in that situation because I think if you're a franchise who doesn't have the restraints that we have, like a Dodgers, Red Sox, Yankees, you probably spend that money and hope on a bounce back. And then if he doesn't, he's a veteran off the bench. But just for the situation the Mariners are in, I think it was the right move, particularly just because you don't know when he's going to be ready. And like I said, it would concern me him not having an offseason to kind of work on some things. But who knows? There's a chance that I think I kind of read this bothered him all year long. And so maybe that's why he struggled. But in that same breath, injuries have been a concern for him for a while now, and that's just kind of more of the same. So unfortunately, it seems like health has been a struggle for him, and it's just kind of another red flag there too. So no worries with declining that option, or no concerns or qualms about it.
Yeah, and for I think anybody that is worried about it, if you really do like Jorge Polanco and you want him as the second baseman, I mean, you could bring him back for probably 3-4 million versus 12. I can't see any way that you wouldn't be able to have him back on the roster if that's truly the player you want. And I'm with you. Like in an ideal world, yeah, that 12 million, fine. Pick up the option. If he stinks, you got Cole Young maybe, coming in. Like you mentioned, Ryan Bliss, if you go with a Ha-Seong Kim. So you have some options there. But the Mariners just can't afford to do that. That's with John Stanton and company, they can't. And I don't think they should. I think it was the right decision to decline that option. So I'm fine with it. Not surprised at all. If any team wants to pay Jorge Polanco $12 million, they're welcome to do it. I'm not even really in favor of bringing him back. I think with the injuries, I think you'll look elsewhere. I guess if you could get a real cheap deal, maybe I could entertain it and talk myself into it. But I think the right option. Speaking of bounce backs, another name that's popped up is former White Sox star prospect Yohan Moncada has come up a few times. Former top prospect, didn't realize he's almost 30 years old now. It's crazy. Feels like he just broke into the league. Certainly someone that's disappointed, but has had a couple decent seasons in his career. Any thoughts on Moncada?
Yeah, I do think he's interesting. I think I kind of put this on Twitter that, I'd be fine with Moncada under kind of the assumption that they go add like a Brandon Lau at second base and a full-time first baseman, and he's your third addition. I know that Divish and Adam Jude have reported the Mariners want to add 2 infielders, so I don't think I'd like it if it's Brandon Lau and Moncada, but if they go get the 2 infielders and now they decide that, hey, we can go out a third and it is Moncada, I'd be interested in that because I think he has more upside than a Josh Rojas and Dylan Moore platoon at third base, which is what we would likely see if they do go out a second baseman and first baseman. It's been a couple of years since he's been good. Injury concerns once again, but I mean, that White Sox organization's been a complete dumpster fire. And so I do have some hope of like a change of scenery for him. Once again, I think it'd be an injury concern. He does strike out, but no more than, Polanco did last year. So yeah. And I think there's upside with them. If a change of scenery does work and he stays healthy, there's a switch hitter that's got a 107 WRC plus over his career. If he could do that or a little bit better. And he's been, a above average defender the last 4 or 5 years. So he's solid there as well, which is another positive. So yeah, like I said, I'd be interested in him if he's kind of their third best addition in the offseason. And then now you do have Rojas and Demo on the bench, which depth is a good thing. And now you have kind of a guy with some upside, and not going to say he's going to go Victor Robles on us, but he does have that prospect pedigree. He's, posted a 140 WRC plus and a 120 in a season. So there is certainly talent there. So yeah, if we were to sign him, I'd be excited just from the standpoint of, there is upside and let's see what he can do. But yeah, it can't be the big addition or even the second best one in my opinion. But yeah, I think definitely a name to kind of watch. And like I said, they brought him in. I'd be excited.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with it. All the points. If that's their biggest addition, then yeah, that's not my big addition. That's a guy that you're kind of taking a flyer on with, like you said, some prospect pedigree that you want to take a shot with. That's fine for me. I'm on board with that. Like you said, if it's their biggest move, then absolutely that would be major disappointment. But you brought up a good point too. Coming from that White Sox organization, which is probably the biggest, maybe outside of maybe Chicago and Colorado, the worst organizations in terms of development and everything like that. So I could definitely see a world where he goes somewhere else and thrives. I mean, we always joke ex-Mariners going places and thriving. Like, I think ex-White Sox are another group of people that just go other places and thrive. So it wouldn't shock me at all if he came here and did have like a 110 WRC plus, above average third baseman defensively. And then apparently my voice is going here, so I'll let you take it from there. But yeah, I'd be on board with Moncada, like you said, as sort of the third, fourth edition of this offseason. So, and then the other name that's popped up, we've talked about it a few times, is Alec Bohm. Now, one thing I didn't realize, I was listening to AJ Pierzynski today, and I guess Bohm was benched in the playoffs. I thought it was performance-based. I guess there were some issues maybe they thought with his kind of demeanor or personality a little bit. Did you happen to see any of that with Alec Bohm?
I did catch what AJ said on Foul Territory, and then Ryan Divish was asked about it on another podcast, and he said kind of something similar. He kind of made it sound like Bohm's maybe known for, late nights out at the bars potentially. I don't know if he didn't say that outright, but reading between the lines, that's what he mentioned. And it was just kind of more along the lines of like Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, those two guys are like maniacs when it comes to preparing for games. And Bohm wasn't anywhere near kind of meeting that standard they were setting. So, kind of Divish said, Mariners with Jesse Winker, I think was kind of maybe in that same category of Bohm in terms of preparation, and that didn't go over well at all. Luis Urias, kind of the same boat. So he's like, with that, if the Mariners were to do it, they would have to do some pretty deep research on it to see if there's a guy that's went out of Philly and he kind of hated it there, or is it more of a, personality thing? Because he's like, if that is the case, he's like, it just won't really go well in the Mariners clubhouse either. So, from a talent standpoint, I think he was on board. Like, yeah, this guy is a good hitter, not great, like not great power, but doesn't strike out, good average. I think can take a few walks. So yeah, I think from like an on-field perspective, he would be a solid ad. But yeah, I think they just need to figure out that kind of clubhouse piece and make sure he would be a good fit. And he also kind of mentioned, I don't think that he would cost, a top prospect by any means. And he said, the Phillies farm system's very, very depleted. So he's like, I wouldn't be surprised if they would take like a prospect that's close to the majors, but maybe they're not looking for an MLB piece in return, which I assume they were. So maybe something that's in AA or AAA that's close, which could be something they're, on board with. He didn't really provide any names, but yeah, like I said, from an on-field perspective, definitely a name I'd be interested in.
Yeah, and sometimes too, change of scenery. We talk about with Moncada. Philadelphia is a tough place. If you are not embraced right away by that city, they'll eat you alive. I'm not making excuses for Bohm and maybe some of the off the field stuff, and they had every right to bench him if that's what was going on. So, what I think for the Mariners going into next year, if this was like a rebuilding thing, I'd say, yeah, take a flyer on all these guys, get Moncada, get Bohm, and let's put them all in the pile and see what they can do. There's no risk. But this is a team that, if they don't succeed next year, Jerry Dipoto could be out of a job. So they've got to be very careful making sure they've got those right pieces. It could be something too, Philadelphia, Seattle, very different cities, very different fan bases in terms of how they embrace things. If Alec Bohm comes over here and, gets a couple walk-off hits in the first month, he'll be loved by this city. They will embrace it and be excited about him. I would hope a Dan Wilson can help with some of those maybe off the field now. Thompson's, an old baseball guy who's in Philadelphia, so I'm going to say that he, handle right, but maybe Dan Wilson can get with Alec Bohm, Perry Hill to work on some of the defensive issues, I think would be good. So yeah, I'm still in on Bohm. I'm a little disappointed to hear some of that. And of course, I'll put the caveat out there. It's rumors, we don't know 100% everything. It definitely makes me a little bit iffy just because I'm ready for the 2025 Mariners to make that leap, and I don't want to take a ton of risks. I just want, there's always risk, but you know what I mean? But and here's the thing too, the third baseman market isn't great. And unless they're going to be in on an Alex Bregman or something like that, guys like Bo Moncada, unless you go with Rojas again, not anybody out there, that's what you're going to have to do. So yeah, I'm still in on Bohm as well. I think, especially if you can get him, I don't think he's going to cost a ton. I think you put out a trade a couple days ago, like a Rojas and Chargois, and then maybe like a mid-level prospect. And if they're not looking for major league caliber, major league ready players, then maybe it is like a bullpen arm. And then, a guy in AA. It's not going to cost you the farm to get Alec Bohm in Seattle. So, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about Bohm. I'm still interested, but definitely, a little worried about some of that stuff. Did I miss anybody? Is there any names I missed? There is Hee-San Kim, the Korean shortstop. Do you know anything? I don't know anything about him. Just outside of the numbers are good in the Korean league, but I don't know much about it outside of that.
Yeah, from kind of read on him, very, very good glove up the middle, so shorter second. In terms of the bat, a lot of the reports are that, he could be more of a utility player. But I think there's also a chance that he's a little bit more than that. Like, I mean, I haven't seen this comp, but there's not much power. So, I mean, could he be like an Adam Frazier that's a little bit better than the 2022 Adam Frazier, with the Mariners, somewhere between the 21 Frazier and 22, where just kind of high contact, low power, but maybe pops like 270 average, 330 OBP, and 7 or 8 home runs with good defense. I think there's a chance of that, but also I don't think there's a ton of confidence that, he will be a starting caliber bat, but it's also not, a conclusion that that's a case. So yeah, I think he'd be interesting once again as kind of that third edition, or maybe you go get, I don't know, Brandon Lau, and then there's a 2A and 2B edition, and he could be kind of in that. So yeah, something I'm definitely interested in. I think kind of a high floor, once again, good defense, good base runner, puts the ball in play, and then it's a matter of, how many hits can he get. So yeah, I think definitely interested in him as well.
Definitely. So I've got 2 more questions for you, if you got time for that.
Yep.
Perfect. So Brandon Lau is a name you have mentioned a lot. I think every offseason plan you've had has included, if I'm not mistaken, could be, that's a little hyperbole, but Lau's been a guy I know. It's John Lowe and Brandon Lau, right? I always get those two mixed up. But he's a guy that you've pinpointed, and even back to last year, I know we talked about him several times. He's in the Tampa Bay Rays organization. In fact, I think he was a guy that had like homered in 4 straight games against the Mariners or something at one point last year. Take me through your thought process on Lau and what you think it would take to acquire him, because it's an interesting name, and we know the Mariners and Rays have traded, and it is kind of a Jerry Dipoto acquisition. It would not shock me at all if he's a Mariner.
Yeah, I think so. With him, like from a contract perspective, I think he's making about $12 million this year. Then there's a club option for about, I want to say, around that same amount next year. So from a financial perspective, pretty similar to where Jorge Polanco was when he came over last year. 30 years old, so right around the same age as Polanco. I'm looking at games played here. Played 107 last year, 109 the year before, 65 in 2022. So there's injury concerns there as well. And then from 123 WRC plus last year, 116 last year, 2 years ago. I mean, honestly, his numbers aren't far off from where Polanco was. And then, like I said, the contract is similar too. So, and what did we trade for Polanco? It was Gabriel Gonzalez, who was kind of a borderline top 100 prospect, and then Justin Topa. So I think something in that kind of range, maybe a little bit less just with the injury concerns. But yeah, I just think that, when he's healthy, he's an impact bat, can pop 30 home runs, draw some walks. His career average, 245, 330 OBP, career 126 WRC plus. Looks like a lot of that was kind of in the front half of his year, and he's regressed a little bit since then. But, a 2 to 3 WAR player. I just think, when he's healthy, he can hit kind of in the middle of the lineup from the left side. So I think he definitely provides kind of that pop and name recognition, and a guy that kind of puts fear in pitchers. And like I said, with the amount that he's owed, I also don't think he'll cost a ton in prospect capital, certainly something. And I think if we have $25 million to spend, he'll kind of absorb about half of that. Then you still have, $10-ish million to go address 1 to 2 other spots. So certainly not a perfect player, but I think one that when, if he's healthy for 100, 110 games, he'll be productive in those 100, 110 games. So, and hopefully it's more than that. But I think a name that will be moved this year, and we have a glaring need at second base. So I think we definitely match up, and we always seem to trade at the Rays as well. So we have that going for us.
Yeah, there's always one trade with Tampa. That's why every time you mention that name, like, it just makes a ton of sense. And a left-handed bat, which plays well into T-Mobile. I know people are kind of probably out there listening going, guys, none of these names are moving the needle. But if you can get this production, it does move the needle. The issue has been at second base that Colton Wong was a negative player. Jorge Polanco, I don't know finished WAR-wise, but it couldn't have been more than 1, unless I'm way off on that. It had to be around half a win above replacement level. If you can get that 2.5 to 3 win player at Brandon Lau, who may not sound super sexy when you hear the name, that is a major, major improvement for this lineup. The issue isn't that they've just gone after these 2.5, 3 win players. The issue is these 2.5, 3 win players have been worth negative for the Seattle Mariners. So they can just get that production out of these guys. It is a great acquisition. So that's a name for anybody listening I would definitely keep an eye on, just with the Mariners and Rays trading history for sure. The last question I have for you, and again, I hope everybody that the sound quality and the video quality and then my voice going out, it's been like a month of this for me. I don't know what's going on, but too much yelling during Seahawks games. First base, Justin or Carlos Santana, because I know you've pushed for the Santana reunion. It seems like one of those guys will probably be here. Justin Hollander talked about that they would like to have Justin Turner back. I guess maybe it doesn't have to be those two players, but thoughts on first base.
Yeah, no, I'd be definitely very interested in either of them. I think Justin Turner's interesting from the standpoint just that he was in Seattle last year. He produced when he was here. It surely seems like from the comments at the clubhouse, absolutely saw a ton of value in him. And I think he rubbed off on other players, which is, I mean, fantastic. From an on-field production standpoint, that I think I would prefer Santana. He's a much, much better defensive first baseman, which then kind of allows Rayleigh to roam back in the outfield, whatever it may be. I think even from hitting wise, Santana may be slightly better. It's not like Turner has platoon splits, so that's not a huge concern for me. Santana was renowned in the clubhouse as well, but it has been a few years since he's been there. So I think both would be great. Like I said, from an on-field standpoint, I think Santana adds more value just because he is so good defensively, and Turner was a little bit rough at first base last year. But yeah, I mean, just due to where the payroll is, maybe they just go with the guy that's most affordable. So I don't think there's a huge difference between what they'll provide. But yeah, like I said, Turner was a huge hit in the clubhouse last year. So I think guys would be very excited to see him coming back through the doors in spring.
Yeah, something we talked about with Turner is one of the reasons we liked that move. I always use your term now, the cage guys, and Turner was 100% one of those guys last year. And I'm with you. I think Santana's probably the more productive player, switch hitter. So you're going to get a guy that can hit from the left side, which is obviously better in T-Mobile. But they're so close to me that if like everybody in that clubhouse, the Cal Raleighs, whoever it may be, is pounding the table for Justin Turner, then go with Justin Turner. Make some of these guys happy. I'm not saying just sign whoever the players want, but that was one of their big things, and listen to some of those guys. They're going, oh, we need Justin Turner back. Then I say, go for it. I'm with you. I'd probably, if I had to choose in a pinch, I think I'd go Santana. I think he's just a little bit more productive. And I think a great clubhouse guy as well. But if they think Turner's a little affordable, and everybody in the clubhouse wants Turner, then I'm fine with it. And I think you brought up the point about Turner, because the big knock on him was the bat speed was terrible. But you made the point, we were talking a lot during the season, that, who cares? It's already so slow, and he's still a productive hitter. It's not like that bat speed get any worse. So I honestly don't think Turner's going to regress all that hard. I think he's going to kind of be what you saw. He'll have moments where he's streaky, as a right-handed hitter in T-Mobile, but I think you get a guy, you cut back on the strikeouts, you get a good guy in the clubhouse, and I think you get a guy that's give you a 108 to 110 WRC plus. And if for whatever reason you fall out of contention, someone will give you something for Justin Turner at the trade line. So he's always going to have a little value from that.
Agreed. Yeah, just look. So Turner last year had a 117 WRC plus. Santana was 114. Santana's F4 was obviously more because of the defensive value. So yeah, Turner was a slightly better hitter last year. They both only struck out about 16% of the time. Santana was hit, more home runs. I think it was like 17 home runs versus 11, but Turner did hit 5 in the Mariners uniform. But Santana was a 330 OBP or around there, and Turner was up to like 360. So like I said, there's just trade-offs. Turner's going to get on base more via walk, Santana a little bit more pop. But yeah, I mean, they were basically dead even in terms of plate production last year. So yeah, either one would be fine for sure.
Yeah, and I think for people, I know Christian Walker's out there, Alonso. Yeah, I don't see the Mariners getting into those sweepstakes. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think your first base options are something like Turner or Santana. In fact, I'd be kind of surprised if one of those guys is not here next year. And I think you're going to see this on with Dan Wilson here, and I could be wrong. I think you're going to see an emphasis on some of the clubhouse chemistry guys.
Yeah.
I think it's been with some of the stuff with Scott and some of the stuff where maybe it wasn't going so well. That's why maybe I'm a little bit hesitant on Bohm. I just think I could see them kind of going, we don't want that coming in here. I'm not against it at all. I think he could be a productive player. And it may just be something that it's not that he's a low effort guy. He just got to cut the partying out a little bit for, something like that. But yeah, I think you're going to see kind of an emphasis on these I'm not saying the whole roster is just going to be clubhouse chemistry. You got to have good players, but I think you'll see a guy like Turner back or Carlos Santana for sure.
Yep, completely agree.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Any fun trades you got up your sleeve? Anything for the people to know? As the hot stove could start cooking any minute here. So
yeah, really no fun trades to throw out there. So yeah, I'll be excited for, I think, the first kind of MLB edition to be made. And yeah, it'll be exciting to hop on and discuss that when it does happen. But yeah, I think that covers it for today.
Perfect. Thank you everybody for watching. One thing I want to do next time I have MarinersSUR on, I'm going to throw this out there without even telling them ahead of time, but I think I'm going to set up like a Q&A. So I'll get some questions in and we'll get you guys to ask us some questions and we'll give our thoughts on it maybe for our next video, hopefully here in the next week or so. I want to start getting back to weekly Mariners videos here and talking to all you great people out there. So appreciate everybody watching, listening to my voice going out. Thank you as always to MarinersSUR for coming on. I'll have his Twitter X linked in the description down below. Highly, highly recommend checking it out. I say it every time, but in my opinion, the best Mariners account on Twitter X. So thank you everybody again. Have a great night. And as always, go Mariners. Peace.